The Ibadan Forest of Horror, also known as the Ibadan House of Horror or Soka, was a dilapidated building believed to be used for human trafficking and ritual sacrifices, located in Soka Forest in Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. The building was discovered on the 22nd of March 2014 by a group of motorcycle taxi drivers who had formed a search party after the disappearance of a driver in the area. 8 survivors were rescued from the forest, while numerous body parts, decomposing bodies, and personal effects of victims were found in the surrounding areas. The activities that occurred in the forest are believed to have been coordinated by unknown kidnappers and ritualists in the state, who are often patronized by some influential Nigerians and politicians who use human flesh for rituals. The horror was the Soka forest along Lagos Ibadan Express Road, where mutilated, decomposing corpses or scores of kidnapped victims were discovered on the 22nd of March the same year. The forest has become a mecca as scores of people were trolling the area to catch a glimpse of the forest, where a large number of kidnapped victims were kept in 40-foot containers for more than a decade. While some of the kidnapped victims did not live to tell the stories, others who were rescued were not looking so well. It happened that kidnappers were on the prowl in the state in the last 10 years, and their victims were kept in the forest where they were tortured and some gruesomely murdered. Some of the rescue victims were stabbed, and at the verge of dying, one of them collapsed and died on the spot as rescue from the police and members of the community came their way. The rescue victims narrated the horrible experiences they received or faced in the hands of their abductors. Some said they were forced to eat shit with gari, others said they became cannibals and even fed on dead human parts. A more devastating experience was the detained woman who said she was forced to sleep with their fellow male victims, and after pregnancy, their babies are taken from them and pounded in a wooden pot while they were forced to watch the growing death of their babies. Since the discovery, scores of people had continued to visit the forest. Most of the visitors were looking for their missing relatives. When some news houses visited the forest, they saw 2 human skulls, limbs, human hair, and dry blood littered in the forest. The policemen were stationed far from the crime scene, but the forest was not cordoned off as the visitors had free access in and out of the place, thereby altering the major crime scene. The forensic investigation would have worked with to unravel the mystery behind the death of many missing persons in the country. A source said that more than 50 human skulls were evacuated from the forest and buried. Residents expressed anger that Oyo State government hurriedly buried scores of dead bodies in a mass grave, and they complained that forensics and a proper autopsy to identify the corpse should have been conducted before mass burial. Narrating how the police discovered the evil forest, the Oyo State police spokesperson BC Ilombanafo, a superintendent of police, said the police were investigating a case of 2 missing men allegedly lured into the Soka community, but we are shocked to see an abandoned building in the forest where people were being held hostage. The Oyo State Police Command was informed of a discovery as the Sanyo area of the state. It happened that a commercial motorcyclist took somebody close to the Bodija area of the state, but he stated receiving a persistent phone call on his mobile phone to the extent that the rider had to stop by the roadside to receive the call. The caller told the motorcycle rider to come to Soka area to pick him up. That was how the commercial motorcyclist, after dropping off the passenger at Bodija, called his brother to accompany him to Soka area so that they can go and pick up the man calling him. 2 of them left for Soka, but that was the last the family heard from them. After waiting, the family members started looking for the 2 men. But when they got to the Ogumpa River Bridge at Sayo, they saw a motorcycle under the bridge. The family member started wondering probably the men were involved in an accident. They reported at the police station, and the police recovered the motorcycle. The family members continued to look for the missing men, and much later they discovered some people in chains. They called the police, the local government chairman, and some other people, and by the time the police got there, they had started releasing people from the chains. Some of the people, as soon as they were released, took to their heels, but the police saw 7 people there. Unfortunately, one of them dropped dead on the spot. The police, with assistance of the local government chairman, took the victims to the Ajayo hospital. The victims were looking malnourished. They were just like living skeletons. We conducted a search of the area, the police said. We saw human bones, clothes, pairs of shoes, bags in different containers. SP Ilombanafo added that the police arrested one Abedin, and following investigation and interrogation, confessed that one Mosiba employed him to look after the kidnapped victims. According to the police also, during the investigation, they also have some of them in their custody. 5 other persons, security guards in the area. They arrested them because they felt that they should have heard the victims crying, because the family of the missing men said that when they got close to the area, they were hearing people crying, "Please give us water, please give us water." We are of the opinion, the police said, that if the visitors to the area can hear people cry for help, then security guards should have heard the cry. They searched the area and recovered 2 guns, a single barrel gun and a double barrel gun. They also found on them arrow and cutlasses, and according to the police, they were also assisting them with their investigation. While the police said that they rescued 7 persons from the evil forest, one correspondent gathered that the 2 men who went on the commercial motorcycle to the area are still missing. The state governor, Abiola Ajimobi, who visited the evil forest, expressed shock over the incident and ordered a mass burial for the decomposing corpse found at the forest. The governor also ordered that the building in the forest be demolished and the land be confiscated. But in a swift reaction, the police high command halted the demolition exercise to pave way for forensic investigation. Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Zone 11, Femi Omolaja, visited the forest and assured that the prosecutors will be brought to book. Doctors and nurses were seen administering drug and injection. The nurses were having a hard time controlling the teeming crowd who had visited the hospital and the ward where the victims were kept. Most of the visitors came from far and near to identify the victims. The victims too wanted to be seen, as some of them will get up from their bed and stand by the barricaded mosquito nets so that they can see the crowd. Though they hardly spoke a word, as they are too fragile to speak. Some, however, seemed to love the attention they were receiving, as they would stretch their hand to nobody in particular. They would just stand and stare endlessly, walk back to their bed in a short time while walking back to the window to look at the crowd again. Others, although especially the female victims, did not leave their beds. Some of them used their wrappers to cover themselves. According to hospital sources, 14 victims were rescued from the forest, including 5 women were brought to the hospital. Some of the rescue members were lucky, as their family members had already recognized them and were making efforts to get them out of the hospital. One of the victims, Wale Suleiman Ola, was the one who recognized his elder sister and beckoned on her. Wale's family had come from Ikorodu in Lagos as soon as they saw his name in the newspaper. The sister was holding a photography showing Wale with his brother when he was 15 years old. Wale's mother said, "Wale is my son. He went missing 14 years ago. He told us he was going to Ajale. This was in 2000. Since that day, he has not been seen. We made reports to the police. We looked for him everywhere. We thought he had died. It was my daughter that read the paper and told me that Wale might be alive. We should come to Adaya Hospital to see him. We brought a photography of him. We're just standing by the window where they were kept when he walked up to us, beckoned on his sister. We could not believe our eyes. I almost fainted. We showed him the picture, but he was just looking at his sister and staring at the photography. I thank God that my son is alive, and I cannot believe that my Wale is still alive. I wept when I saw him. He was in terrible state and will need all the love and care in the world." Also, the family of one Adenike Adeniyi, one of the rescued victims, came to the hospital to recognize her. They were calling her BC, but she said that they cannot remember any of her family members. One of the family members said Nike was kidnapped at Oke, Bola area of the state, 7 months ago. She went out to buy something that day, but that was the last time we saw her. She is looking very thin and unkempt. The hospital told us that we should bring a police report so that we can take her home. As the reunion was going on, other visitors were, however, distraught that they could not find their missing loved ones. An elderly woman said, "I came to the hospital to see if I can find my niece, called Toyin. Toyin was working in a bank, but one day in 2011, she went out and did not come back. We have been looking for her since then. Toyin was a beautiful woman and was loved by everybody. Her mother could not bear the pain of her losing a bright child like Toyin, and she had a heart attack. She had been paralyzed since then. I wish I can see Toyin among the rescue victims. I have been standing here hoping and praying to see her among the rescue victims, but she is not among them. A youth corps member with his brother, one Jide said the family had been distraughted over the disappearance of one of their brothers, Akin, who went missing in 2013. When we read the story on the internet, we decided to leave our base in Kwara State so as to find out if he is one of the rescued victims. The hospital management is asking us to bring a police report. It was just few months to his wedding when he disappeared and nobody has heard or seen him since then. We hope and pray to God to find him here. A housewife, Bola, said that she was at the Adayo hospital to look for her missing sister. My sister, Fadeke, went missing 12 years ago. You can see that I'm shedding tears because she is not among the victims they rescued. I'm happy for the families who saw their missing loved ones. I wish I can see my sister too. Other residents who spoke to journalists at the scene, however, expressed joy that their kidnapped family members were rescued from the evil forest. They, however, want the government to check the increasing case of kidnapping in the state as at that time.